Greetings, my name is Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Crimson Gray. In the last episode, when I was being threatened with an axe by Lizzie, rather than running away like I did in episode 2 and ended up getting axed in the back, I decided to stand my ground, and I ended up essentially being held hostage by Lizzie in her home for the entirety of vacation time that was granted to the students, which was basically for about a week. And during that time, I've decided to just throw all semblance of common sense and self-preservation out the window. Well, maybe not entirely in the sense of self-preservation, but at least all common sense, and just try not to resist Lizzie's attempts to essentially do whatever she wanted with me, which is mainly hold me captive and just have a nice, relaxing little vacation in her basement with her. And somehow I ended up surviving the whole ordeal. And I was eventually let go, and well, we're still continuing to date. However, during all that, I started to learn about a few troubling details regarding KoiTec and, well, regarding some of the clinical trials that they're still operating even now. How there might be still some suspicious things going on at the company, even in the present day, despite the efforts that they made to essentially try to bury their past failures with previous clinical trials that resulted in, well, Lizzie, essentially. Afterwards, I ended up going to the county fair with Lizzie, and it was all good. John got to show off his strength a little bit, and, well, he pretty much stuck his dick in Crazy out of sight. So, yeah, that happened. And then right at the end, some girl ended up brutally murdering her boyfriend by carving his entire face off before getting shot herself by the police. And apparently, this girl, who I suspect was probably a couple that John and Lizzie ran into briefly while in the county fair. Apparently, Lizzie knew of her in passing, and that's because her mother, this girl's mother, and Lizzie's mother knew each other from the KoiTec clinical trials that they were a part of. So, yeah. Basically, this other girl, whoever she was in Lizzie's own words, similar but not quite the same to Lizzie. So it pretty much just started begging the question to me, how many more Lizzies are running around that we should be made aware of? How many other women were pregnant during these clinical trials that KoiTec held in the past? And obviously, well, what is KoiTec really doing now with the drugs that they're putting on the market now? Hopefully we can get some answers to at least some of these questions in today's episode, so let's just go ahead and get this started. Hopefully we can get some answers to those questions in today's episode, so let's just go ahead and get things started. The next morning, John woke up feeling the best he'd felt in a long time. He had to remind himself that most people would be in mourning over the 2 murders the night before. The school had the flag at half-mast, and a class was cancelled so they could have a special assembly about the incident. It basically meant nothing to him, and to most of the other students as well. It seemed to have shaken everyone else to the core, but John still felt good. Maybe that meant something was wrong with him, but he didn't really care. He felt like he and Lizzie were even closer than before. But when she arrived, there was a strange look on her face. John, Something is wrong. Someone wants to take you away from me. Lizzie? Are you feeling well? Please. We need to run away together or we won't have our chance. Wait, hold on, Lizzie. I mean, why do you think someone's gonna try to take John away from you? It seemed like she had become more unstable, and what she was saying must have been in her paranoia. Yet, she seemed strangely intense about the whole thing. Well, paranoia tends to make one intense. Just saying, John. Just run away? How would that even work? I made plans. We could do it, I'm sure. As serious as she sounded, perhaps this was unnecessary for her to stay stable. Or you'd just be playing into her paranoia. But unfortunately, I don't think she's being paranoid, or at least improperly paranoid. But doing something that wild out of nowhere, after everything that happened to them, could he? Would that just make her even worse? Why not? Let's just entertain this. Where would we go? Won't that just attract attention? No, I'm prepared. We can say the murder made us want to transfer and go away and live safe from all this. If you say so, and I trust you, then we need to get away from here. Far, far away. That very day, Lizzie arranged everything, pulling him out of school and apparently faking the permission slips. How the fuck was she able to do that? She seemed in earnest, madly jealous, as if a woman would sweep in at any moment and take him away. John went along with her in a daze, shocked by how fast it happened. Lizzie told him to say the murder had shaken him up too much, wouldn't let him see anyone, even Mrs. Smith. Other students were also shell-shocked, so it didn't raise too much attention. But when they left town, in a car with supplies Lizzie had prepared, John almost felt like someone was following them. Was Lizzie's paranoia just rubbing off on him? Probably not. Probably not. In fact, if I were you, I'd probably be prepared to possibly fight off some men in black. He told himself it had to be that, because eventually the feeling vanished. They moved away, finished school, found new lives. For years afterward, John wondered about that moment. Had he made the right choice to support Lizzie, or had he just encouraged unnecessary paranoia? Maybe it didn't matter at all. Yet somehow he couldn't make himself believe that. Perhaps in another life, things could have gone differently. Occasionally he wondered why Lizzie would still seem so nervous about the entire thing. When he asked, she just told him that it didn't matter anymore. They were safe. And we get to finally see your mug. As the years passed, she began to calm down. She still had days where she needed him to hold her tight, just like he had days where he needed her support. Despite everything, they were a normal couple. That's a bold-faced lie and you know it. After they were married, Lizzie softened again. His co-workers told him he was lucky to have such a beautiful, devoted wife. And he was. He just had to pretend that he was the one with the enormous collection of knives. Achievement unlocked. Happiness. So I guess this is one of the endings. There is another path. Well, we got one ending. I didn't think it happened quite that fast. I guess we need to now see what will happen if I choose to stay. Let's stay this time. I'm sorry, Lizzie, but no. Things are safe now. No one's going to steal me away from you. Okay. The encounter with Lizzie dampened his mood substantially, but he told himself that he was still correct. They had gone through a difficult time in their lives, and things were better now. After school, he got a call to go to Mrs. Smith's office. He considered just not going at all. He wanted to spend the evening with Lizzie, but the note seemed urgent. This is not going to end well, I'm sure. When he arrived, he found Mrs. Smith with a rather grim expression on her face. John, I hope you're doing all right after the incident. I understand that the boy who died was a friend of yours. That felt like an eternity ago, but he realized it was more or less true. He shook his head slowly. An old friend, but yeah, it's hard to believe. Well, I thought we should have a conversation. It's okay, Mrs. Smith. I feel like I'm doing okay. There are students who probably need more help than I do. I'm afraid I must insist. Lie down. He almost defied her then, but in the end decided to do as she asked. Therapy sessions always made him feel better. It couldn't hurt. No reason to draw attention to himself or Lizzie after all. Unfortunately, I think you guys have plenty of attention on you as is already. Oh, alright, what do you want me to talk about? My feelings about the incident? No. There's no time for that today. Huh? I need you to relax immediately. I do not like that look in your eyes. John began to settle back onto the couch, letting her words become a meaningless hum. And for the first time, he realized how wrong that was. He lay there, apparently relaxed, as he tried to think back to their past therapy sessions. The more he thought about them, the more he realized an ominous pattern. He could barely remember any details. They would chat for a while, then the rest of their session was just a white haze. Ready? I need you to remain calm and come with me. Yeah, this definitely is bad signs all around. Red flags everywhere. You might want to run. She spoke flatly, as if she expected to be obeyed without question. What was this? Some sort of hypnosis? Well, the drugs. Maybe the Paxitine is meant to make people more docile, more susceptible to commands, suggestions, that sort of shit. Realizing she might get upset, John slowly got to his feet. He wasn't sure how he was supposed to act, but he settled for straightforward obedience. Delayed response. Have you been taking your Paxitine lately? She's on to me. He gave a half shrug and just stared back at her. Mrs. Smith frowned, then shook her head and gestured for him to follow. I suppose it doesn't matter. All this is normal. You want to follow me and await instructions. John had no choice but to do as she left the building, but inside he was panicking. What was he supposed to do now? If he'd seen Lizzie, he could have begged her to follow with his eyes. But he didn't see even a hint of her, not even watching him from around a corner. They walked outside into the parking lot, where Mrs. Smith opened the passenger seat door of her car and gestured for him to get in. He stepped inside and tried to keep the tension off his face, instead just staring forward. They didn't drive very far, just to a warehouse a few blocks from school. A freaking warehouse! It looked half abandoned, but when their car approached, the gates and then one of the garage doors opened for her. Yeah, this is definitely not... Yeah, I don't like this. Inside, there were multiple armed men in gray body armor. He didn't see any insignias on them, or indication of who they worked for. Jesus fucking Christ, this is a conspiracy, isn't it? It's not just a corporation just being greedy just for the sake of it. Why don't you take a seat, John? He got out of the car to obey, only then spotting the blank white table and 2 chairs placed in the center of the warehouse floor. Sitting down, he tried to stare blankly at the table, even as he analyzed what it held. There were 2 metal briefcases, and just to make things strange, a box of surgical gloves. I really don't like where this is going. Someone tells me she's gonna do more than just take your kidney. Remain calm, but focus on me, John. You're aware of your surroundings, but willing to accept what I say. Huh? Not the most elegant of lies, but it seemed to work. Mrs. Smith barely even glanced at him, instead pulling on a pair of surgical gloves. We brought you here for your own protection, John. I'm afraid that your girlfriend is not who you believe she is. Lizzie? What's the problem? Is she okay? I'm afraid not. Not even close. Years ago, KoiTec was an innovative company on the very forefront of biochemical research. But I'm afraid some of the company's founders were less than ethical. And you are supposed to be a much more ethical representative of the company, I assume. What does any of this have to do with us? Shut up. I'm getting there. Testing standards were rather lax. In particular, there was a certain test of a mood drug that should probably never have been certified. Dozens of lawsuits were settled for families that suffered in the tests. That is right and good. KoiTec acknowledges the mistakes of the past. Yeah, no you don't. It looks like you guys tried to sweep it under the rug. Unfortunately, some of those mistakes were more enduring. 4 pregnant women participated in the test without disclosing their pregnancies. They were, of course, removed as soon as their condition was realized, but it was too late for the embryos, so 4 total. 1 became completely non-viable and was stillborn. There's conflicting evidence around the second, but it appears the boy may have committed suicide at a young age. But we are concerned with the last 2. One of them was the murderer who police put down last night. And the last was Lizzie Doss. Huh? You're saying Lizzie had some kind of condition? Early investigations suggested both girls turned out normal, so the matter was closed. But recent events make it seem very likely that both of them were deeply disturbed. I'll be blunt. The girl is not remotely stable. She's a danger to herself and others. Did they really think that would work? They would just nod and accept that story with guards all around them, armed like paramilitary forces? Well, I mean, is she wrong about any of this, John? Then again, perhaps she was counting on her therapy to have a controlling effect. Either way, all he could do was keep up his act. There was no doubt truth in what she was saying, and he needed to learn more. Then, what do you want me to do? Why can't all your guards take care of it? John, we don't want to hurt the girl. Not at all. We want to help her. We would prefer she came in quietly. The implicit threat hung in the air. John swallowed and nodded. And what am I supposed to do? The girl trusts you. If you can administer a sedative to her, then we hope we can medicate her without any unnecessary struggling. Mrs. Smith opened the first metal case, showing him a number of syringes filled with disturbingly bright liquid. They looked like chemicals that would melt metal, not ones that should go into anyone's body. If you are receptive to our plan, we will provide you with a variety of options. We have extra strength sedatives here, for example. However, based on the incident yesterday, I personally believe we may need a more extreme option. I would advise you to use this one. Her fingers brushed the last syringe in the briefcase, one filled with a bright red liquid. This is a modified version of the chemical that Lizzie was exposed to in utero. Wouldn't that really be dangerous? Achievement unlocked, the right path. Her body can barely handle the level of exposure she already received. An additional dose should lock her down entirely. And you expect me to convince her to be injected with something like that? It does not need to be injected intravenously. Autopsy of the other girl indicates the chemical has a substantial effect on muscle tissue, so an injection into any muscle would be effective. Autopsy. This is more of a conspiracy than he'd imagined, but there was no time to reel from that now. John simply nodded as if this was vaguely reasonable. Well, I want her to get the help she needs. Are you sure this won't hurt her? Let me be honest with you, John. There will likely be some pain for her as her body rejects the chemical. But it may be the only way to ensure that she harms no one and cooperates with treatment. I see. He sat forward and held his head with in his hands, as if he needed to think, which he desperately did need to do. Would they really just give him the syringes and let him go? He doubted it. At the very least, they'd be keeping him under heavy surveillance. Talking to Lizzie directly would be impossible. In fact, he had to wonder if everything Mrs. Smith was saying wasn't just a backup plan. It might be no accident Lizzie was missing. Maybe they were looking for her. But ultimately, he didn't have enough information. And he didn't see any way of getting to the point he needed to reach with so many security forces present. Smith? HQ hasn't responded. Damn it. We'll just proceed with the plan then. No, it's not that. We seem to have lost our connection. And this case is completely under my authority. John, we're counting on you to end this without anyone else getting hurt. I hope I can do that. You can. I'm sure of it. Then, should I? At that point, a radio crackled. One of the soldiers raised a walkie-talkie and tapped the button. What was that, perimeter? Attack! Repeat! Under attack! Oh shit, Lizzie's gone nuts. She's probably got a freaking machete on her hands. Shit, directly? Alright, switch to plan C. Get moving. The soldiers rushed to obey, and John rose with them. Surely it had to be Lizzie attacking them, but what did that mean? She's coming to get you, John. That's what it means. At least I think so. He only got one step before two soldiers grabbed his arms and forced him back into the chair. He struggled, but they were adults and far stronger than he was. I'm sorry, John, but it looks like you'll have to serve as bait. As she spoke, she opened the second metal case. This one held syringes filled with clear liquid, one of which she lifted and examined. What? Miss Smith, what are you doing? This is going to hurt, I'm afraid. But if she's snapped, this is all you're good for now. He tried to struggle even harder, but the soldiers had gotten him strapped into the chair. Bound in place, he was helpless to do anything but twitch as Mrs. Smith approached with the needle. Before he could do anything to stop her, she injected it straight into the vein on his arm. and the pain was instant. His world went white, and his ears rang so loudly he could barely see or hear anyone. Mrs. Smith was desperately giving orders, and the soldiers were moving about, but he couldn't understand any of it. He had never felt anything so painful before. His thrashing partially tore one of the straps binding him. Then he slumped down with agony still washing through him. Through the pain, he dimly saw Lizzie arrive and slaughter the remaining soldiers. She seemed heavily injured, but it didn't stop her erratic, deadly movements. Lizzie had Mrs. Smith pinned now. She was saying something, but he couldn't hear over the rush in his ears. It felt like his heart was going to burst with every beat. Distantly, he realized that Lizzie was threatening Mrs. Smith, then torturing her. Whatever was said, it didn't matter. He fell away into the blazing white pain. No, she just had her trusty axe with her. Should have guessed. He faded back into reality with cool hands on the sides of his face, piercing through the agony all around him. Somehow he managed to open his eyes despite the pain. Lizzie's lips moved, but he couldn't hear anything. He realized that she was crying and understand why. All he wanted was for the pain to stop. She leaned forward to kiss him, and the kiss was sharp and cold. He kissed back for a long time before he realized that her axe had entered his chest. It felt cool. Almost pleasant. The burning hot white all around him began to fade into darkness. The last thing he saw before it all fell away was Lizzie. He tried to say goodbye, but it was too late. Why the fuck did you kill me? Why? Because I didn't trust you or something? Okay, so I got 2 endings so far. I'm gonna check and see how many others I still need to get real quick. 3. You've unlocked at least 1 bonus from previous games. These will make positive outcomes more likely, and negative outcomes less so. Do you want to play these bonuses? Sure, why not? Let's continue with the bonuses. Let's try talking to you this time. Can I help you? This is about 4. I'm sorry, I just wanted help. Wait a minute, didn't I already do this one? She looked really uncomfortable. Of course, she probably hated him as much as everyone else. Drowning in shame, John decided to cut his losses. Well, sorry to bother you. I'll be going. He needed to get to his appointment anyway. He didn't want Mrs. Smith getting mad at him again. Let's leave a note. John cut a small sheet of paper from one of his notebooks, wrote thanks on the inside, and set it in his locker. If it was a prank, that ought to throw the pranksters off. And if it was someone who meant well, hopefully they'd take it as normal gratitude. Okay. He headed home, and once his homework was done, quickly fell asleep. Next morning, he thought he spotted someone outside his window, but there was no one there. Don't double skip, but when he opened his locker the next day, the note was gone. When he opened his locker, he discovered a folded note set in the exact center, like always. He stared at it for a long moment before unfolding it with trembling hands. Like that tree either. Oh. You left me a note. It was almost too much. I took it home and I'll keep it forever and ever and ever. John realized it was way over his head, so just minor differences. let's do cautiously say yes. Lizzie, I don't know you very well yet, but despite all this, I think you're a good person. And not answering the question, I want to get to know you better, Lizzie. Maybe then I could love you. He said it! He said it! Okay. Let's skip ahead. No, John loves me. That's all that matters. Get to class. Let's try talking to Lizzie about the medication stuff this time. John walked along the street until he was sure that Lizzie was slinking after him, then turned and waved to her. She waved back. Hi, John. Did you change your mind? Can we go home together? I knew you... No, I just wanted to check with you. Are you taking any medication right now? Have you had any bad reactions in the past? Oh no, I've never taken anything. My mother always took too many drugs. It scared me when I was little. I see. Are you sure you're really alright taking medication now then? Aw, John is so considerate. Don't worry, I'll be fine. I see you take your medicine every day to try to get better. I want to be like you. Okay, good, I think. I hope it'll help. I'll take anything you give me, John. Stepping out onto the street, John glanced at his watch and decided he had more time to research his options. Let's try researching the library this time. Stopping by the library, John did his best to research possible medications among the books, even asking the librarians for help. It felt really ineffectual. He wished there was a better way to get information, but there wasn't a lot of options. In one of his classes, they claimed that computers would eventually make things easier, but their schools couldn't afford any. One of the few things he could do was skim through various books about mental illness for references to symptoms like Lizzie's. Her case sounded much worse than anything he'd read about. All the articles suggested that most mentally ill people were non-violent, but he knew that wasn't true of Lizzie. Though there wasn't a lot of concurrent information about KoiTec, he did find some. There were crackpots who felt their medicine was ineffective. Even Paxitine had critics who felt it was being rushed to market. John forced himself to stop reading about that, since it just made him feel worse. Instead, he focused on selecting potential drugs for Lizzie. Two showed up as potential candidates: Yondequail and Nilazine. According to the studies, Nilazine calmed people down, but tended to flatten emotions, which a lot of patients hated. By contrast, Yondequail had better reviews. Other than nausea as a side effect, it seemed to do a good job of calming violent people. Whether either of the drugs would be alright for Lizzie was an entirely different question. It was getting late, and John realized he needed to get home quickly if he wanted to have time for his homework. On his way back, he was sure that Lizzie was following him, but couldn't get a clear look at her. Alright, let's try Nilazine this time. 2 weeks of Nilazine coming up. Try to help her rest, okay? Yeah, okay. Hanging outside, John handed the bag to Lizzie. Pushed pretty hard to get to this point, but he would never force her to take the medication. His father had used to talk to him like, yeah, this all looks the same. Let's try skipping. As he watched, he realized she was definitely calmer than usual. Her sweet cheerfulness seemed natural, not manic, and she would even smile at people that passed him sometimes. Could it really be the Nilazine? With him, the Paxitine had taken weeks to work, and whether or not it actually helped had been really unclear. Then again, Lizzie was her own case. Of course, it took more than drugs to cure a serious condition. He knew that all too well. As Mrs. Smith had said, therapy was also an important component of recovery. Hers had certainly helped him a lot. The third main component was a social support network. And there, he completely failed to take her advice. He still spent most of his time alone, or in meaningless old relationships. Okay, so it's the same too. Classmates just scoffed. John considered taking Lizzie's hand and pulling her away, but worried about how she would react. And after a moment of hesitation, it was too late. Listen here, you piece of... Oh dear. Without warning, Lizzie stepped past John and directly into his classmates' faces. He caught a glimpse of her, and she seemed strangely focused. Then he could see only the back of her head. John is a good person. Holy shit, she's practically humping you! You think you shouldn't say unkind things about good people. Her voice sounded sweet, but his classmates took several steps backward. John was suddenly very grateful that he couldn't see her face. I've had a nice day today. I hope you'll have a nice day too. Fuck this, we're out! They scrambled, just barely slow enough that they weren't running away. Lizzie stayed exactly where she had been standing, entirely still. John wanted to say something, but his mouth was too dry. Let's keep going. Okay, John? I definitely don't like this drug even compared to Jan de Quail. Sure. But they hadn't gone far for, okay, this new dialogue. Sunday was a miserable slog through every second. John gave up on accomplishing anything whatsoever and just lay in bed feeling worse about himself. He fell asleep and woke up early in the morning. Not feeling better, that was impossible after a day wallowing in himself. But suddenly his energy was back. And he needed it, because he hadn't accomplished anything he needed to do over the weekend. He set to working feverishly on Monday's homework. By the time he needed to go to school, his eyes were gritty and his good mood was gone, but he was ready. High functioning. John sighed and headed to school. He hadn't gone very far before. Without warning, Lizzie was walking beside him. Good morning, John. Morning. Are you okay, Lizzie? Are you alright, Lizzie? I spent yesterday thinking. I've come to some conclusions. Yeah? So, what did you conclude? For such a long time, the most I could imagine was being near you. Talking to you. But now I see that's not enough. You have to be protected. I have to do it. Lizzie, what they said to you, it made me so angry. I wanted to kill them. Then you'd be safe. Wait, you didn't. No, I didn't. Because you have to be protected from me, too. What? Since I took the medicine, I see things differently. I don't like it, but I understand it better now. I don't want you to be afraid of me, John. I'll protect you, no matter what. She seemed sad, but so sincere. What was he supposed to say to something like that? Maybe nothing, just walk away and go for help? You don't need to say anything. But don't worry. Please don't worry. I'll protect you. That's all I can do. I had a really good time on Saturday. I mean it. I'm glad to see you happy too. John is so kind. Too kind. I'll see you later. She rushed away too quickly, leaving John completely uncertain what to think. I think she's going to do something drastic. In some ways, she seemed more stable, yet that wasn't a complete comfort. Lizzie was still carrying her knife. Okay. Perhaps due to the medication, she seemed so much more stable than before. She was sweet and kind at all times, always considerate and affectionate. Yet there was the occasional moment when she saw a hint of something feral in her eyes. He worried about what she would be capable of, if she thought it was necessary. Okay, well, no, you've been happier than you've been in a while. No, we're just friends. John, you shouldn't lie to me. Lie? But I know you're in high school, but can you really be that dense? There's no way that girl thinks you two are just friends. I guess I don't have to ask if the two of you have... Well, given your generation, maybe I should. Have the two of you been intimate? What? How can you ask that? Okay. Has the girl ever displayed strange behavior? No, she hasn't. I can't think of anything. She's a little shy, maybe, that's all. Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. Okay. So, say, how is the Nilazine working out for you? No unpleasant side effects? It's wonderful. Thank you so much for giving it to me. I bet you destroyed it, just like you did with the Yondiquail. But John, we've been dating since you accepted my confession, but we've only done normal things. I love being with you, every single moment. But can we do something more romantic? Like go out on a date? No, that's silly. Okay, so you know I'm not going to propose. Let's take your hand. Again. So we're here. Let's stand firm once more. Let's trust you. Reason with her. Make something for Lizzie. Request old medication. Make something again. I didn't think the skip function would be this fast. Maybe I should try a conversation, starting a conversation about romance again. That reminds me, I mean to ask you. You've run out of Nilazine, right? I haven't taken for days. I destroyed the rest of the day before our date, okay? You destroyed that too. Make something for you. Let's kiss. Don't try anything. Didn't spot Lizzie at all, but when he opened his locker, he discovered a full note in the center. Good morning, John. This all looks the same. Lie about everything. Let's try stain again. Okay, that's just another game over. So there really is no difference, I guess, between Yondiquail and Nilazine unless I just choose to leave. I think maybe I should try a different line of conversation and romance. So let me try asking about her peers. Lizzie, I was wondering, Who was that girl I saw with you last week? Oh. Her. She doesn't matter to me. You don't have to worry about her taking any of my time away from you. I'm not worried. I'm just happy to see you have a friend. She's not really a friend. I don't have any friends. Lizzie. Oh, please, don't be sad for me. I'm fine. It doesn't bother me at all. I wish everyone would leave me alone, but in middle school, I stayed away from everyone, and they just gossiped about me. It ended up being more of a pain. So in high school, I decided to find a friend to use as a shield. That's who you saw. I see. But you probably picked her for a reason, right? She was an easy target. Quiet and shy, desperate for a friend. She doesn't bother me much. I don't hate her. But don't worry, I'll get rid of her for you if she's a problem. No, no. I'm actually glad you can interact with someone, even if it's not a real friendship. Good. All else being equal, I guess I'd rather she be happy, even if it doesn't matter that much. She's been useful to me. For the rest of the day, Lizzie opened up more about her thoughts on people at school. Pretty much everyone she either hated or didn't care about. Not surprised at all to get that little suspicion of mine confirmed. Still, the conversation seemed to improve the mood between them. Okay. Everything. Let's try agreeing with you. I know that you don't want to hurt me. Good. But you would pick up a knife to hurt other people, wouldn't you? Yes. To protect you, I would do anything. I would kill anyone. You see? This week has already helped. Before, I might not have told you the truth there, and that would have been so horrible. You won't reject me because of that, will you? I don't want you to hurt anyone. I know in your head it must seem necessary, but I wish I could make it so you don't have to hold a knife at all. Aw, that's so sweet. But you're too kind. Too kind. I should be the one taking care of you. You shouldn't have to worry about me. But I'm good taking care of myself overall. Maybe you don't have to be down here too much longer. But will you stay for now, John? Please? He nodded, as if he had a choice, and Lizzie beamed. That day when she cut vegetables in front of him, her knife seemed to move even faster than usual. And John realized, even if it was crazy to think it, that he really wasn't afraid. Which didn't mean he thought he was actually safe around her. But for now, at least, he didn't think fear was the right response. On Saturday, Lizzie announced that she wanted to make a huge meal for both of them. We got this meal. I'm definitely a bit stuck here. I think maybe I should try approaching this from a different angle for a little while. Like maybe I should try to find endings that are bound to put me on a wrong path first, and then once I find all those, I can then deduce from the choices I didn't make, getting all the different endings, what I need to do in order to get the true end. So I'm just going to start my game again, and, well, I guess from there we'll just... Actually, no, wait, I shouldn't. Let's just continue with original balance, that's what I wanted. Let's just skip on ahead. to glare at her. To his surprise, she didn't seem to respond at all. Just stared. Maybe stared through him. Maybe he was imagining the whole thing. Okay. Let's tell Mrs. Smith. John found Mrs. Smith in her office and she gave him a friendly smile. Everything okay, John? I think someone is getting into my locker. They're leaving things in it. What kind of things? Just little notes. They're making me nervous. Do you have one of the notes? Yes, right. But patting his pockets, he discovered that he must have left them back in his desk. Of course, he would screw even that up. John, are you feeling well? You think I'm crazy, don't you? You're under a lot of stress lately. Please make sure you keep taking your medication. No, I'm serious. I don't have anything now, but there really have been things in my locker. I didn't say that I disbelieve you, but we need more evidence to take any action. You can always talk to me about it, okay? Especially if you get any kind of threat. My door is always open. Now, would you like a quick therapy session? You look like you need it. John reluctantly agreed and lay down on the couch. He soon relaxed, and by the time he headed back to class with a note, he felt much less depressed. Mrs. Smith was probably right. The teachers couldn't help him with this. No, but Mrs. Smith and her big old conspiracy of KoiTec can. John left school at a brisk walk, finished his homework quickly, and fell into bed. The world was still gray, but perhaps not as dark as it had been before. When he woke up the next day, he felt even better. Things would be fine so long as he kept everything in perspective. Maybe. Making an effort to set the mystery of the locker aside, John went with his friends to the rooftop for... Okay, this is all the same. Why? Why'd you try to tell Mrs. Smith? Don't you like me? I don't like her. She's always talking to you. She's awful. She doesn't deserve you. Okay, there's just that minor difference. Lay her down gently. Talk to Mrs. Smith. Talk to the pharmacist. Let's try not taking anything. Actually, maybe it would be better if she didn't take anything. Let me be frank with you, young man. This girl is suffering from an extreme chemical imbalance. Her only hope of becoming normal is heavy medication. But you said it would just be temporary, right? No, we're fine. John ignored the pharmacist's protests and headed back out the store. Lizzie seemed a little puzzled that he hadn't come out with anything, but didn't ask questions. As he watched, he managed to convince himself he made the right decision. Maybe Lizzie wasn't completely stable, but she was completely devoted to him. The entire time they walked through the park, she stared at him adoringly. Drugs weren't always the best solution for curing a serious condition. He knew that all too well. Scott didn't care. When they got out, he looked back at Lizzie, and to his surprise, she had a smile on her face. She looked more peaceful than he had ever seen her. I knew you were a kind person, but I didn't understand how kind. I think I understand better now. I'm glad I met you, John. Wait here, okay? I forgot something, but I'll be right back. Before he could object, she was around the corner. John stared, wondering if he should do something, but too drained to do anything more than stand. The entire day in public, plus the encounter with his classmates, it left him with nothing. He wasn't usually outside and in public this much, and though being with Lizzie wasn't bad, he wasn't stable enough for this much interaction. He heard something clatter in the alley and hoped. He wasn't sure what he hoped. A gray cloud was covering his entire mind, choking out all thought. Oh shit! She's covered in blood. Then Lizzie came back. Lizzie, what? You're kind, John. Too kind for this world. Where did all that blood come from? What did you do? She murdered them. It doesn't matter now. I want us to have years together, but I can see that can't happen. Maybe it's better to have one perfect moment. Smile, John. You won't suffer anymore soon. She moved forward, and before he could back away, her lips touched his. The kiss was brief, yet a shudder went through her body, and her knife went to his chest. It hurt, but he was so far from the pain that he could only stare down numbly. Lizzie gave him a sweet smile, then plunged the knife into her own chest. Okay. This is the first murder-suicide I've seen you do. Both of them collapsed to the street, blood splattering everywhere. The last thing he felt before the numbness overwhelmed him was Lizzie reaching out to take his hand. I really hope I don't have to consult a guide here, as I'm really starting to get stumped. On Sunday, John woke up utterly miserable. It took him several minutes just to push the sheet off his face. Then he immediately winced at the light. There's probably no way he was going to get out of bed for the entire day. Not feeling like this. He had homework due on Monday, but he just didn't care. He'd get hungry eventually, but it didn't compare to the deeper emptiness gnawing at him. Everything hurt and nothing mattered. Just when he was going to roll over and futilely attempt to go to sleep, he heard someone knocking on the door. "Good morning, John." He stared at his ceiling for a while, and pulled his sheets over his face. Not today. He had no energy for anyone else. He'd have to take care of herself. She'd have to take care of herself. Soon enough, she stopped knocking. Good. John let the blanket stay on his face, but didn't close his eyes, just staring at the fabric. That was when he heard the front door close. Under normal circumstances, he would have been upset or uncomfortable, but in the grip of depression, he barely registered what it meant. "So did you pick the lock, or did you make a copy of my key at some point?" "Good morning, John." He didn't respond. She didn't seem to notice, moving closer and pulling the blankets away from his face. "Are you having a bad day? Don't worry, Lizzie will take care of you." And with that, she began bustling around him, probably not even caring that he didn't respond. She untangled his sheets and tucked him in better, humming a little tune the entire time. "Stay right there, okay?" She gave him a little peck on the cheek, then skipped out of the room. He heard her go across the floor, then enter the kitchen and began opening things. Strangely, just having her present helped. The worst part of days he couldn't get out of bed was actually the boredom. He didn't want to do anything, but that left his mind grinding against itself. Now at least he had Lizzie to listen to. It sounded like she found the pots and pans pretty quickly and turned on the stove. Since his mother had left, most of them didn't get much use. John's father never cooked anything, and though John had learned to cook for himself, he usually had to use the same pan every day. Was she really going to cook for him? He recalled that her lunches had been pretty good, so maybe he had something to look forward to. Lizzie popped in again and opened his window and let fresh air in. He was afraid that she would try to talk to him, but she just smiled when he looked at her and kept moving around. Soon he headed back out, still humming to himself. Eventually she returned with a steaming bowl of soup. John stared at it, so she sat down on the bed and held out a spoon for him. Eat up. You need your strength. It looked like she was going to hold the spoon in front of him until he ate it, so John gave in and accepted the spoonful. Even through his gray haze, it wasn't bad. He opened his mouth when she fed him another spoon. After he ate the soup, she left him alone again for a while, and he actually drifted asleep. It was heavy, exhausted sleep, but it was better than nothing. When he woke up, Lizzie was sitting nearby, staring at him with a dead look in her eyes. But John found that he didn't even care. He spent the entire day caring for him, always fussing around for his comfort, and feeding him regardless of his objections. Somehow she managed to convince himself to sit up. Propped up against some pillows, and once he was sitting up, it was easier for him to do something else, like read for a while. To his surprise, Lizzie actually pulled out some homework and began working through it, humming to herself. He wasn't sure why he was surprised. Obviously she was a student too, but somehow he didn't think people like her actually worked or studied. By the end of the day, he was actually feeling close to better. But when he tried to get up, Lizzie kept him down with a gentle hand on his chest. I'll get you better, okay? Sorry, you get better, okay? I'll see you on Monday. She stayed with him until he finally went to sleep for the night. It was only as he was drifting off peacefully that I realized that he had definitely locked the door the night before. Then she picked the lock, or something. Okay, is that it? Is that all for this new scene? No, she's sort of stalking me. You're speaking casually, right? Stalking is an actual crime, you know. You should report that. No, nothing like that. Good. I assumed as much since it looked like more than that to me. And along those lines, I have to ask, have you been intimate? Let's go with yes. John's fears flared up again. He very nearly talked about the threats Lizzie had made. Yet a memory of her smiling sweetly at him flashed through his mind, and he ended up saying nothing. Is that a no? She's basically normal. As normal as I am. That's not much of a vote of confidence, but I know what you meant. I'm not being rude, John. This is important. Yes. We've already been through all this. So sweet, but it's not necessary. Help us get closer together. Yeah. Let's just keep talking. Deciding against it, John focused on keeping the conversation flowing. Lizzie actually wasn't getting a lot eaten, since she didn't talk with her mouth full and listen rapidly whenever he talked. But at least she seemed to be having fun. After a while, Lizzie patted at her mouth with her napkin and sighed in satisfaction. It's wonderful, absolutely helpful. Get yourself. They got into the bus, and Lizzie eagerly sat right beside him. The conversation got interrupted, and he was worried it would feel awkward. But Lizzie didn't seem to mind. After a moment, she hesitantly slid her hand along his arm, as if trying to take his hand, but too nervous to do so. Pull back. John shifted to fold his arms, putting his hands out of her reach. Lizzie pouted, but a moment later she leaned her head against his shoulder. Beg. Lizzie, please, don't do this. Oh, John. hurt you. Don't you know that? Please. Oh, frowning, Lizzie set her axe down on a side table as she moved forward. John watched it nervously, but relaxed a little. That was when he realized that her other hand was holding the real threat. The cloth was over his mouth and nose instantly. And though he tried to struggle, he couldn't break her grip, and the chemical fumes overwhelmed him. Come on, give me something new. Charmer. Lizzie, weren't we having a good time earlier? Getting closer together? Yes. Yes, it was wonderful. We can go on another date. Just let me out. We can keep going the way we were before. But I need more than that. I need to help you. He didn't want to push too hard, but he thought he got through to her a little. If he kept appealing to her romantic side, maybe he could get out of this. Let's try to look for tools. His table had been placed to be out of reach of the weapons lining one wall, but that put him close to the other wall. John managed to get around the table to it and began examining them. There was a metal cupboard that appeared to be locked, but he looked through the rest. There was a toolbox that he thought was locked at first, but eventually he realized it was only stuck. After enough effort, he got it open and looked through. Most of it was random aging tools, but he found a screwdriver that looked to be in good shape. Could he use this to escape? He saw several possibilities, but at that moment he heard Lizzie return. It was too late. Okay, so we got a screwdriver. Lie about the old medication. After afraid she might be trying to drug him. John struggled to remember other medications he tried. He mentioned a few names of ones that hadn't seemed to have much effect on him. Lizzie nodded, but there was an emptiness to her eyes. She knows I'm lying. When she went upstairs, she didn't leave the house, just paced about erratically. When she brought him food, she smiled, but her eyes were hard. John tried to beg her, but she refused to answer. What the hell was with her paranoia? Did she hate KoiTec because of her mother? He had no answers, and Lizzie left him alone. Without her to distract him, he almost slid deeper into depression. Okay. Personally, he couldn't get into the movie at all. The greatness of everything around him drained all satisfaction from the activity. Okay, so you're feeling depressed. John had considered trying to use the tape as evidence, but quickly realized he didn't want to go there. If Lizzie had tapes of him, he would be certain that she would watch them, over and over. And if she did that, he had a bad feeling she would not notice his escape attempts. She would notice, excuse me. There would be some detail he couldn't hide, and then she would completely stop trusting him. For now, I need to focus on getting out. Start a conversation about morality. Hey, do you mind if I ask a random hypothetical question? Ask anything you want. Say a train is running down a track and will kill 5 people. You could pull the lever to switch the train to another track, where it'll only hit 1 person. Do you pull it? Well, in order to save the greatest number of people, I would pull it. Who are the people on the tracks? Huh? That's not supposed to matter. It's just hypothetical. Random people, no one you know. I don't pull the lever. I would leave. So 5 people die. Okay. He had a feeling he knew what she was going to say, but... Say I'm on the first track, and the train's heading toward me. If the lever would make the train hit 5 other people instead, would you pull it? Yes. That was a dumb question to ask her. What if there were 10 people? The number doesn't matter to me, John. I would kill 100 people. 1,000. And then I would go find the person who put you on the track and kill her. I like how you assumed that it was a female. And the train conductor. And everyone on the train who didn't help. If my only choice was to switch the train to come hit me, I would do it. I would do anything. Lizzie, I don't want you to kill yourself for me. Aw, you're so sweet. But no, you have to survive. I want us both to be together forever. But if I can give my life to save yours, it would be worth it. How would you answer that question if a teacher asked? One already did, last year. I pretended to be flustered and said I couldn't pull the switch. So you do understand how most people view this. I'm aware of how they think, but I don't understand it. What they think, it doesn't really matter to me. But if I say the wrong things, people will interfere with my life. So I've had to learn to say the right things. I did that with you too, John, at first, because I was afraid you wouldn't love the real me. Well, the real you isn't really being put on display either, but whatever. But you will, eventually. I'm sure of it. That made things a little uncomfortable for the rest of the day, but John hoped that if he ever did somehow get strapped onto train tracks, Lizzie was the one nearby. He woke up in a foul mood, half depressed and half angry. Lizzie was watching with a concerned look on her face. Are you sure I can't bring you medicine, John? If you're not going to bring me Paxitine, then there's no point. That displeased her, and he really didn't want to go down that road. So John cast about for a topic to distract her. Okay, we're going to talk about the Yonda quail. Could be any validity to what she said. These days it took all the energy he had just to interact with Lizzie. He was declining and declining fast. We can't. Let's try looking for weapons. The table had been placed fairly far from the weapons lining the walls, and no amount of strain could get him close enough. But after a few unsuccessful tries, John realized they might be able to push the table even if he couldn't lift it. Though more difficult than he expected, by bracing himself on the floor and throwing his whole body into it, he could nudge the table a little at a time. After a while, I got him close enough to reach the weapons. He didn't dare take any of the ones placed carefully on the walls, but there were any number of rusty knives lying unused. One of them was slim enough that he could hide it in his pocket. It might not do a lot of good, but he felt better than having something to defend himself. A moment later, he was overwhelmed with a sense of dread that Lizzie would return and see the table moved. He set to work pushing it back into place. Though it was even harder to push it the other way, he managed to return it exactly its former position. John slumped down into his chair and let his heart calm down. An uncomfortably short amount of time later, he heard Lizzie return on the floor above. He sat calmly and tried to pretend he didn't have a knife in his pocket. Friday, John woke up. Let's disagree. I'm sorry, but I don't agree with that. What? But, John, I love you. Yes, but you were convinced your love required you to use that knife on... But if you were convinced your love would require you to use that knife on me, you would do it. Aw, that's so sweet. What? If you were afraid of me, you never would have been so honest. But even with all my weapons right here, you didn't try to lie to me. Oh, John. I hope you're wrong. I would never, ever want to hurt you. But I'm so happy you said what you really think. John swallowed uncomfortably. He He wasn't sure where he had expected honesty to go, but this was better than expected. As to John I love, I want you to accept me, just like that. And you do, even though you're still worried. She wrapped her arms around his neck, still carrying the knife, and kissed him briefly on the forehead. After that, she lowered her face to his, hesitating for a moment, but in the end pulled back without kissing him on the lips. Oh, you have no idea how much I want to do right now. But I'll wait. I'll wait until you trust me. Do you trust me enough to let me go? Soon, darling. Soon. Okay, on Saturday. Try to remove the chain without tools. John bent down and tried to find a weak point on the chain. The links themselves looked tough. They clawed at the bolts holding the shackles around his leg and the table leg. Soon he realized he was only going to hurt his fingers. Instead, he tried to see if he could slip his foot out the shackle. Once he took off his shoes and socks, though, he realized how difficult that would be. Maybe if he could somehow dislocate something in his foot? But no, that wasn't the kind of thing a normal person could just do. He didn't want to give up, so he kept trying. But in a surprisingly short amount of time, he heard the door on the floor above open. John scrambled to get his shoes back and socks back on, and pretended to be doing nothing out of the ordinary when Lizzie returned. Okay. She opened her hand, palm up, and pointed at his pocket. John realized she had known and winced. He removed the knife and slowly and handed it to her. She said nothing. Well, that was pointless, grabbing that knife. That made things even more awkward, but he couldn't think of anything to say to make it even slightly easier. Eventually he left. He thought he might have been seeing a glimmer of tears in his eyes. Okay, this looks the same. In the morning, John felt like he had been scraped raw. It was uncomfortable, but better than carrying baggage. Would having his meds help, or just make things worse? It was impossible to know for now, but he wanted to find out. Lizzie wasn't waiting for him at school, though he thought he spotted her peering at him from around the corner. Were they back at this again? Well, after what happened, he wasn't going to complain about her giving him some space. Okay, so she's... Yes, oh. Tell her the truth. Actually, I'm afraid of Lizzie. She's... I don't know what, but there's something really wrong with her. Are you afraid? Are you concerned she might harm you or someone else? Has she issued an actual threat? I'm not trying to dismiss your concerns, John. In fact, I'm very willing to act on them. I know that. However, without evidence, it might be better to contact a different authority. KoiTec has measures that... No! Oh, hi, Lizzie. John, why? Why would you betray me? But Lizzie... So you pretty much do listen to my therapy sessions. Then you lied to me. I thought I could trust you now. Stop that! While Lizzie had been focused on him, Mrs. Smith had been quietly removing something from her desk. She hesitated when Lizzie looked at her, but then kept moving. This is your fault! You want to take him away from me! Now, Lizzie, calm down. There's no need to make wild accusations. We can all... Lizzie leapt across the room, her knife flashing at Mrs. Smith's throat. To John's shock, the older woman actually dodged back, out of the way of the slash. Not only that, but her hand came up from her desk, carrying a syringe that she attempted to plunge straight into Lizzie's chest. But Lizzie was faster, bringing her knife down on the other woman's wrist. Mrs. Smith gave a cry of pain and dropped the syringe, and then it was too late. Oh shit. Lizzie's next slash went straight through her throat, carrying a spray of blood with it before the rest began to flow down her neck. Well, I'm fucked. Lizzie turned toward him slowly. Her face was covered in blood, but he was more concerned about the emptiness growing in her eyes. I should have just ended it quietly. We could have been happy. Lizzie, what are you doing? I'm sorry, John. There's nothing else I can say to you. She rushed at him, just as he had known she would. But he didn't have the energy to dodge. It didn't matter. She was going to get him in the end anyway. It hurt, but not as much as he had been expecting. He stared at the blood flowing down his body with no real emotion. Weeping, Lizzie leaned forward to kiss him. Her lips were strangely warm. No, it was just his body was growing warm. As the blood rushed, growing cold, I think you mean, as the blood rushed out of it. The warmth increased, dissolving what remained of his thoughts. Then it was very cold, but not for long. Another game over. Getting a whole lot of game overs, but not much in terms of actual endings. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and cut the episode off here. I can try to figure out exactly what series of choices I need to make in order to get any of the other endings in the next episode. Which could take a while, but, well, I'm bound to get there eventually. I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of Crimson Gray. If you did and you want to see more content from me, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'll see you all next time. Take care.